Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod Barbecue Podcast. I am your host, Mike Musto, together with a very good friend of mine, the wonderful Courtney Leonard. Courtney, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor.
No, absolutely. So here's the thing, guys. What I wanted to do is, I have so many friends that are in this hobby, and they get into it in a bunch of different ways, both men and women. And the whole goal is to talk about what their experiences are throughout the hobby, how they got into it, where they see it going, and so on and so forth. Courtney is a diehard hot rodder. Her and a pop built some really kind of wicked stuff. She's always sending me photos of vehicles. I'm always like, yes, buy this. No, don't buy that. And I was like, you just got to come on the show. We just got to rap about cars. So let's start from the beginning. How did you first get into this hobby?
Oh gosh. Well, typical my father. My father is a die-hard hot rodder car guy. He raced flat bottom boats for many years. And his father was a die-hard car guy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really in the family. That's kind of how it happened for me. I had no choice. I tell everyone that my father had no sons and no one told him that. So my sister and I just live cars and we've lived cars our whole life. So it really kind of drove that passion and drove that. So yeah, that's kind of how we got into it.
So do you remember what's your earliest hot rod or old car experience?
Well, I don't know if I remember it, but my grandfather did buy me my first car. It was actually one of those little RC cars that you would sit in and you would ride in. It was a little red Corvette and it was a convertible, and I was one. Um, so I couldn't even drive it. There's pictures of me sitting in it in front of the Christmas tree in my grandparents' living room. And I had that, oh my gosh, until my teen years, way beyond when I should have been sitting on that car. But yeah, that my grandfather, God rest his soul, if he was alive when I turned 16, I know that my collection of non-running and running vehicles probably would be a lot bigger. So
Mm-hmm.
um, that just kind of really sparked it in me. And I've always gone to car shows. I've always been involved in it. I've always been passenger seat in my dad's cars. So it's really just in my blood.
Yeah. So what does your family have in the garage? Like, because, and I already kind of know because Court always sends me pictures. Like, what about this? So go ahead, give everybody a rundown of what you
Oh
play
my
with.
gosh. Okay, you want me to give me the whole list?
Yeah, give it a list.
Oh,
Sure.
okay, so I'll start with my own cars. Well, I have my first car still. So it's
Mm-hmm.
an '08 Mustang. I call it the plain white wrapper. It
Mm-hmm.
is base model. Fanciest thing in it is an aux cord. It has gone with me to college. It has gone with me to live in different states. It's only gone through one transmission. It's actually still under 100,000 miles. So that's like the one car I'll never get rid of. And everybody makes fun of me in the hot rodding culture for having
Mm-hmm.
E6. It's like nothing special, but it's special to me.
It's
It was
yours. It's
a car.
yours.
Yeah. So I try to keep that one nice. That one sits in the shop. I don't pull it out as often as I should. And then I have a 2018 Tahoe, Chevy Tahoe.
Mm-hmm.
I bought that because I needed to tow my boat. So that I call that the sofa with wheels. That's my
Mm-hmm.
typical vehicle. Adore the Tahoe. Typical white Tahoe energy on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a boat. So I impulse bought a boat during the pandemic. We grew up on boats. My dad raced boats. And so ski boat was the natural thing to do during the
And
pandemic.
there's a lot of similarities between hot rodding and drag boats and flat bottom boats. I mean, it's kind of one of the same, no?
It's very similar. I obviously there's a lot of people getting involved in that culture again right now. There's a huge resurgence of people my age who are buying these old boats and these old race boats, these old flat bottoms, throwing a blown big block in it and going out and having a blast. I will say they are scary. So it takes cojones to drive one of those. I'm not sure I have that. But my father, he did it for many years until he drove Dago Red. He raced in the blown gas flat division and probably through the 80s. And my mom made him sell it when he almost flipped it.
Mm-hmm.
So he almost flipped the boat. They are deadly. And I was just born. So naturally, the race
Mm-hmm.
boat went, more hot rods came in. So yeah, I have a ski boat, bought a ski boat, love it, have a great time. I call it cheap fun. Didn't pay a whole lot of money for it. My dad and
Yeah.
I bought it. It was a rat. It needed work. We tore it down. We tore the motor down, rebuilt the top end, threw a fresh carburetor on it, and we just ride it out there on the Delta.
Yeah.
And then after that, I have a daily driver. So very, very important for me. I live a little bit further away from my job, a little bit further away from my friends. I have the beater. It's an '04
Hmm.
Benz. It's an E-Class. I remember when I bought it, you were like, you bought a German time bomb. But
I
it's
thought you
actually,
did buy a German time bomb. I was just like, that's just such a mistake. Such a mistake.
I
But it's
know.
been good, right?
It's been great. It's actually been really good. I think I bought it from an exotic dancer. It was
Oh,
very dirty.
you
It
did.
was,
It smelled like stripper.
it did, it 100%. I
Yeah.
found so many eyelashes in the center console that I finally was using tweezers to pull them out. And I was like, nope, we're calling the detailer. Like,
Yeah.
detailers come
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as, yeah. Nope. Don't want to touch anything else. That's
Don't
it.
want anything else. It comes
Yeah.
pre-dented, so I could park this thing anywhere. If somebody dented my Tahoe or my Mustang, I'd be devastated.
Yeah.
This thing is freaking
Don't
fantastic.
care.
Don't care. I've driven it up and down the California coast all summer long, put mega miles on it. It's been great. The only thing I've done is I rebuilt the front end on it. Obviously, change oil on it regularly. And yeah, just throw some parts at it, and it runs great. It runs amazing. And then that's it for my fleet. The family fleet, my father has,
Yeah. What are the hot rods?
so the hot rods, my father has 56 Chevy. It's a Bel Air. It has a 383 stroker in it, Tremec 5-speed. It's rowdy. It's super rowdy. We just did a bunch of modifications, changed the intake on it, changed carburetor on it. So, if I do say so myself, my father is a fantastic mechanic, and it is running like a top. We also have a '68 Corvette 427. That's an original big block car, factory side pipes. We still have the knockoff wheels for it. They're not on the car. That was a car my dad took my mom out on their first date in.
Wow.
So that's a whole other story, but she always tells people he loves that car more than he loves her.
Mhm.
Uh, 4-speed car, beautiful. I hope I get to drive it soon one day, but he loves that car. And then we have my grandfather's 31 pickup Ford, has small block Chevy in it, automatic, total 1980s build. It's got an 8-track player in
Mhm.
it.
That's awesome.
It's street rod green. And then, oh my gosh, we have a original 29 sedan, Ford sedan. That was my grandfather's when we cleaned out his garage.
You really didn't have a choice.
I had no choice.
Like you really didn't have a choice.
Yes, the
Yeah.
list goes on and on. And then there's all the other vehicles that are in the driveway that
Yeah.
we drive on the daily basis. So it goes on and on. When you asked me if you wanted all of them, I was like, oh man, this is gonna last a while.
So when you were growing up, was it constant, like was your dad just constantly in the garage, constantly working on them? And would he show you how to do, like, were you curious as a kid to be like, hey dad, what are you doing? Like, and would he try to teach you, or was he like, no, these are mine, go away?
No, he definitely got us involved. If we wanted to. He was very like he didn't force it on us if we didn't want to do it. We definitely like I went through a period of time where we were swimming a lot. That was my sport. I went to college for it. And so I missed some years. I have a little bit of regret there. I probably shouldn't have went to college. I should have went to maybe a mechanic school, maybe a trade school. My father's a tradesman. And
Mhm.
he got us involved, and it was up to us whether or not we wanted
Yeah.
to do it. Like I have a vivid conversation and memory that came back to me, oh gosh, a few weeks ago. And I remember him sitting me down and going, do you want to do drag racing? And at the time, I was just a nervous kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I love going to the drag races and I love watching the junior drag races, but I don't know if that's for me right now, Dad. And he's like, okay, just let me know when you're
Yeah.
ready.
So what
But
about now?
oh, I would love to. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would. I want to get, I love everything motorsports, anything hot rodding, anything automotive involved. My father, hardcore, domestics, hot rodding
Hmm.
culture, built motors, blown, injected. I lean a little like I bought a BMW and I was like the first foreign car in the family.
Yeah.
And
Did
so
he yell
that
at
was
you?
kind of a weird thing. Yeah. Um, So yeah, he gets us involved. I actually am his shadow every weekend. So when I moved home from Arizona, I have followed him around pretty much every single weekend since I moved home
Hmm.
the last 5 years. Um, and that's my joy. If I
Yeah.
had to choose any other activity to do on the weekend, it's in the shop. It's learning from him teaching me. He's actually retiring at the end of this week.
Hmm.
So I'm
Oh,
extremely
wow.
excited. Yeah, we have a bunch of projects.
I
I
was
didn't
going to say,
that's my project cars on the list. So yeah, we have work to do.
well, it's interesting because I mean, we had a conversation about it where, so many of the really skilled guys and men and women in that generation are going away, right? And the fact that you have somebody that can kind of guide you through this hobby, make you understand not only the beauty of these old cars, but the mechanics that go along with them and how to maintain them and how to enjoy them is such a huge thing.
It is.
And I think especially, being a woman to come into this hobby is just outstanding because I mean, we say all the time, but like love to get so many more women into this hobby because it really is the greatest hobby in the world, as far as I'm concerned.
Same. I 100% agree. I think that it's such an untapped market, and I feel that yearning of women wanting to get involved, especially in my friend groups. Um, they ask me all the time. They call me. They go, "I love the tinted windows on your car." And it's just that simple. They don't even know like, how do I go and get the windows tinted on my car?
Right,
And they
little
just like
things.
little tiny things that they want me to go with them and show them how to do it. Or they'll send me a picture of, do I need this fuel injector cleaner treatment that they're
Right.
getting at the dealership? And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, wait, I have something. Run this through the gas tank. Like,
Yeah.
so it's little things like that where it's like getting them empowered to do it themselves and have a little bit of like, you can even like Dodge's direct connection thing.
Yeah.
You can bring your car down and have them put whatever you want on that vehicle
Yeah.
without having that mechanical know-how.
Right.
And that it's just like you can make yourself a cool car. Like you sure you can have a boyfriend that has a cool car, but wouldn't it be better if your car was just as cool as his or maybe a little
So,
faster?
so what do you well, that I totally agree with. So, but what do you think the trepidation is of most women getting into the hobby? You think they just feel like it's male dominated, or do you think it's just because we always look like some of my friend Alana is one of my favorite people in the world, Alana Scherer, and then my friend Emily, and there's a whole bunch of others that are
Love
women
them.
that are in the hobby that are just wonderful. And it's I look at them in awe because they have no fear of doing of anything. Not only are they amazing journalists and writers and everything else, but they get their hands dirty. And I think it's one of those things where um that's the biggest thing. And to have such a positive influence like your pop that brings you into this, especially with the older stuff. Like newer stuff is fine. Like we all like new stuff and it's whatever. But there's something about the smell and the sounds of the old stuff that just kind of sucks you in.
100%. And I think they're I don't want to say scared, but I think they're just nervous. I think because it is such a male dominated space. They don't even know how to get involved because maybe their parents weren't involved like my dad is.
Sure.
Maybe they don't have friends in the industry. Maybe they don't have friends with cool cars, or maybe their friends aren't even taking them for rides in those cool cars.
Yeah.
Like I love when we bring our cars out. I try to get a group of girls to go with me to these shows because I want them to ride in the car. I want them to experience the smell, like you were talking about, the sound of it, the roar of the motor, the
Yeah.
rumble, getting to see the community. It's all about the people. The
That's
people,
the other thing.
oh my gosh, fantastic. Salt of the earth people. Um,
Mhm.
that it's just night and day. But I think it's opening that door and inviting them in that has been really difficult. I think there's a little bit of that trepidation and that like hesitancy, like, oh, I don't know enough. Or what if I
Right.
sound stupid asking these questions? And I feel that all the time because I don't know enough. I mean, I don't know as much as my father
Well, I don't
did.
think I don't think any of us do, right? I think that everybody's in a constant state of learning, especially when it comes to this stuff.
Totally, totally. And I think there needs to be a little bit more, especially for like some of us girls who are into the hobby, of opening that door and being more welcoming. Because I think sometimes you get like a little annoyed. You're like, oh man, I got to drag like this group of girls with me. and they're going to ask all these questions, or maybe they're going to think it's hot and they're tired, it's middle of summer. But I think once you swing open that door, I've noticed I've gotten so many more people interested. Like I have a friend and she tells me all the time, like, I would love to have a 65 Mustang. Like, this is my goal, like
Yeah.
my dream car. She's like, but I'm afraid I won't be able to drive it because of the stiffness of the steering. Because I
Hmm.
in the rundown, like you're driving an old car, you're driving an
Oh
old
yeah,
car.
they're antiques. Make no mistake. Like when you're talking 65 Mustang, that's an old car. That's a 55, 60-year-old car. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So these are antiques, and there is something where, especially if you're younger, right? If you've never, so much of it is learning that you tell especially with a carbureted car,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
the sound. You know how it runs by sound. You know how it runs by feel. You know the vibrations. You know all this stuff. It's not That's not a bad thing. It's just if you've never experienced it, and if no one has ever told you what to look for, what to smell, or what to this, you just might. It really is an education process.
It's totally an education process. And I think we're failing a little bit in giving
Yeah.
that education to the women who want to get involved. I think
Hmm.
because they're totally capable of driving these cars and totally capable
Oh,
of taking care of them and knowing what to look for, like you were talking about. I think it's just getting them out there, touching them, feeling them, talking to the owners, understanding like, oh, you know what? Maybe you don't want an original 65. Maybe you want a little bit of a resto mod.
yeah.
Maybe you need a little power steering in there. Maybe it
Right.
needs to be automatic. So it's like you don't have to do the three on the tree thing.
Right.
It's all available out there in the market. And a lot of it is attainable. Like maybe the 65 Mustang's a little bit too expensive.
Yeah.
Oh, let's look at some Corvairs. Like,
Right.
let's
Exactly.
get more funky. Like
Yeah.
you can get into the hobby and it doesn't have to be the big dog price cars. It can be something a little weirder that you found on Facebook Marketplace, and we spend weekends throwing a motor in.
Hmm. Well, we say that all the time. It's like, I think a lot of people have this thing where, from an expense standpoint, it's unattainable. If you give me 5 to 10 grand, I'll find you something. And yes, it's not going to be a big block Camaro, but you know what? It might be a 4-door Corvair, or it might be an old 4-door Dart, or it might be this, and it gets you into the hobby. And I think it's taking that first step, and this is for men and women alike. I think a lot of people are just afraid of getting their feet wet. But like everyone that I've ever known that has entered into it, they always go, "Oh hell, I want to keep doing this." And then it snowballs. Then they're like, "Okay, well, how do I fix this?" And they're super simple machines. These are machines with 16 moving parts. They're not complicated, you
It
know?
is not like my Tahoe out there with
No.
computers and the drop cylinders and the I'll let the dealership handle that all day long.
Yeah.
Bring me a carbureted car, a carbureted boat, and you can
Hmm.
tune it, you can adjust the idle down, get a flathead screwdriver out. That's how you're
Right.
going to tune that carburetor. So
Right.
I 100% agree. It's just like it's a snowball effect. Once you get them involved, you get them interested. It's like, oh man, like how do I make my wheels and tires? Ooh, I can add that to my daily driver. That makes it look a little bit cooler. Like I don't want to stock. I can get stripes painted on it, pinstriping. Bring pinstriping back. It's
Right.
all in that customization, and I kind of believe that's the culture of hot rodding. A little different. Customize your stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody has a different flavor.
Right.
So
Well, I agree with you. And the other thing is, I always tell people, I'm like, if you want to get your feet wet, you don't have to buy anything immediately. Just start by going to a show. Start
yeah,
by going to it like a Cars and Coffee. And don't be afraid to walk up to anybody and just ask a question. What if you don't know, like, what is this? What does that do? The thing about, I think, car people, both men and women alike, is we love to talk about it. If you have a question, we're going to answer it. The key is going to be able to get us to shut up after we start
yeah,
talking, right? I think that's the biggest thing. But I think if people would just do that and let their guard down a little bit and just admit to not knowing stuff and feeling comfortable with asking a question, you'd have so many more people coming into this hobby because, like you said, you take the guardrails down. And then
yeah,
all of a sudden, it's just people become comfortable. They can start asking questions, and that gets them into the buying process and start to, figure out what they like, what they don't like, and so on.
exactly, exactly. Walk up to the person that's sitting behind their car in a chair because honestly, like I'm friends with a bunch of old dudes. Like that's just the nature of hot rodding for me. My father's an old dude, and they live and breathe for somebody walking up and
Hmm.
asking them about their car and what they've done to it.
Yeah.
My father won't exactly shut up. He will tell you down to the brass he put in the distributor because of the cam. It's just all the way down to that. Um, it's 100% true. Is don't be afraid to get out there. If you
Yeah.
pass by a car show and you're just driving one day, pull over, go in, walk around, make a friend. If you're afraid to talk to somebody, usually people have window stickers that say what the car is. You can look it up
Hmm.
on your phone. I realize that it's like for women, it's a little scarier sometimes to go up and talk to like an older gentleman about his car.
Hmm.
Look it up. Usually on the window sticker, the registration tag, it says what the car is, and then
Right.
squeezing in there what motor's in there. So kind of get yourself a little bit involved. Videos online,
Oh
follow
God, yeah.
creators. It's just small steps like that, getting in the Instagram algorithm for cars
Hmm.
also will help you out. Yeah, I think I love empowering my friends to get involved in this hobby because I feel so passionately about it. And I feel very dorky when I start going off on a tangent and they're just looking at me glazed over. Uh, but it does light my soul on fire when I get them in the 56 and we're rolling through gears and their hair's flying and they're like, this is the best day ever.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
so much fun. And all we did was like go get an ice cream in the car. And so it's really getting people involved in the hobby.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing though how one ride can change perspective in an instant
And
in an older vehicle? Isn't it crazy?
it's crazy. It's if I'm having a bad day, typically I'll go in the key drawer and I'll grab a set of keys and I'll just go for a quick run.
Hmm.
It's just mind clearing. And driving those cars, you can't do really anything else. You are driving the car.
Oh yeah.
And that's what I love about it. Like that's why I sometimes I'll drive the fluffy couch Tahoe
Right.
too much. Be like, I gotta stop this. It's doing
Yeah,
too much.
you have to like reset
Yes,
almost.
you
Yeah.
have to because you have to get in the car and roll the windows down and listen to the motor and run through the gears.
Right.
That's what really is gonna like. That's what sets my soul on fire. And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. I mean, we're blessed. We live in California. We can do this most of the year. I understand that back east, maybe cars go away for a little while,
Yeah.
but any car that you own, you can get in. You can do that.
Yeah. So what would be, aside from going to a car show, what would be the best advice you would give to women out there to say, get into the hobby? How would you go about doing it? And to, because let's face it, and you made a great point, like, walking up to random guys and just being like, "Hey, how you doing?" We all know that a bunch of guys are scumbags out there, and you have to be very careful about doing that. So, however, you know, is it car shows? Is it Instagram? I think is a great place starting to watch videos. Where else would you go?
YouTube for sure. If you know someone and you admire them, you see
Hmm.
someone in the car, maybe a neighbor, reach out to
Yeah.
them, ask them. If you see a garage door up in your neighborhood, if somebody walks into like, we have our garage door up most weekends, we're working in the shop. People walk by all the time and they love to tell you a story about the car they see.
Absolutely.
They're always like, oh my God, my dad had one of those.
Yeah.
Go and talk to them. Be like, what kind of car is that? Like, I noticed you guys driving it. Like, I'd love to see it. Shoot them a compliment about the car. They would love to tell you about it. And then open the door. Say, I would really love to get involved. Where are local shows?
Yeah.
And you can go online. There's Facebook groups. You can take a look to see where all your local car shows are. There's Instagram, obviously, Google search it. Look for
Hmm.
the local car shows. There's really, in the car culture, there's a flavor for everyone. There isn't,
Absolutely.
I mean, you don't have to like what I like. You can like whatever you want. There's JDM,
Oh
there's
yeah.
Porsche, there's so many different groups. Maybe the hot rodding culture isn't for you. Loud cammed motors, big
Right.
blowers. Maybe it's turbo, air cooled. Go to those shows. Look up manufacturers. Manufacturers typically have some sort of like group car events. I know Porsche does. It's really just kind of seeking those shows. That's where you're going to find the people.
Yeah, I agree. And also, honestly, I think it's just trying to experience as many different cars as you can, right? That's the other thing. Like you touched on a great point. Like high rodding might not be for you, and that's totally fine. Like I have some wonderful friends, my friend Jennifer and my friend Sarah, and they're vintage. They own vintage Porsches, vintage 911s, like 912s and 911s and whatnot. Yeah. And it's a different scene. It's not a worse scene. It's not a better scene. It's just a different style of car. And so, or vintage BMWs or that's the whole thing. But these cars, they take you into kind of a different world of where things were just much simpler and they were much easier to understand. And I don't want to say it was more elegant. Sometimes it is, but they are little time machines that can take you back,
It's like the best way you could time travel outside of being able to really time travel.
Yeah.
I collect vintage clothes too. So whenever I buy a piece of vintage clothes, I think, oh, well, which one of our cars could I drive this with? And then I can put it back into time in this vehicle. So yeah, to that point, it's stepping back in time. And it doesn't have to be in the 60s and 70s. You could think of a car that maybe your grandmother had in the 80s, 90s even. I mean,
that's 30 years ago, man.
Yeah, it's 30 years ago. I mean, dating myself, but 90s OBS trucks. My father bought a Slam Suburban for my mom for an anniversary gift. Boyd Coddington's on it. It had a 4 and 6 drop. It had 4-low exhaust. This thing was badass, and we had no idea when we were kids. Right. We were just in mom's Suburban, but I would love to get that back.
Right.
I would love to go find that Suburban again and own it again. So it's things like that. It doesn't have to be all the way back in the 50s. If you're scared of something that old, you could go even to early 2000s and find something.
Sure. That was 20 years ago, man. It's like this is the thing. The time marches by. And there are so many wonderful vehicles out there and so many different groups that you can go to and different car shows and different people that if you're ever thinking of getting into the hobby, don't wait. that as you know, I've been up since 4 a.m. So I'm a little shot today. But there are very easy channels that you can go in and get some great information and honestly just have fun. I mean, that's the key to it, right? Like if you're not having fun in this hobby, there's something wrong with you.
Then it's not worth it. That it's the wrong hobby.
That it's the wrong hobby. So,
yeah.
So, Court, let me ask you a question. Where can people find your stuff? I know that you're setting up kind of a new Instagram page that's just going to be mainly for cars and stuff. Where can people find you?
Totally. So I am on Instagram mainly and TikTok at Court's Cars with Z's, COURTZ Cars with a Z. So I set those up for all of my car content. I have a couple of builds that I'm going to try to put a little more content on. It's still very new page, so bear with me. I love feedback from people. If you want to see me doing something, you want to see how we did something, please let me know. My 31 Roadster project is going to be on there, and then very soon my 67 Camaro project is going to be on there. So.
Very, very good. So, Court, thank you so much for coming on and just BSing about cars. We'll probably do this again in like 30 minutes when we're off this thing anyway, so it don't matter. But no, it's great. I think we're going to just keep having you on. And here's the thing. If anybody has questions about how to get into the hobby, ping me, ping Hemmings, ping Courtney. This is what we like to do. This is if we weren't doing this, we'd still be doing this. It's just,
it's true. I live and breathe it. So absolutely love it. If you don't want to talk to a man like Mike, come talk to me. I am more
absolutely.
So I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. So everyone, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And that's it. Court, thanks for coming on and hanging out. And I don't know. That's it. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks for listening, folks. And again, please subscribe to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast. If you're on Spotify, check us out there. Subscribe to it on iTunes. And if you are going to go to YouTube, make sure you go to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast and hit that subscribe button, and we'll come to you every week.